Sisters, mothers, and fathers. Greetings and welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today on Articulate 2021. You know, the previous interviews, Bezenzega, and today I have for you a very special guest. But before we go there, I want to read the synopsis. This is what we call the summary of the book and how special it is. It's able to encapsulate and capture a reader's mind as to what the author was thinking about. And this is what he says. And by the name, his name is Thulani Gumede. Thulani has an artistry in approaching a subject like a cameraman shooting from different angles in response to his own fatherlessness and the fatherlessness engulfing nations. The author, in his voice, writing, has taken it upon himself to be the father he never had, which is very powerful. But more than that, to be a father and a voice of hope in the dungeon of life. This book, Fathering Shadows, is a wide net cast out to bring family peace and unity while addressing many intricate aspects of fatherhood. The author, Thulani himself, has skillfully unravels affirmations of sons, daughters, and unleashes wisdom about navigating through life's crossroads, the essence of education, conquering battles of the workplace, and moreover, the understanding of absent fathers. Very powerful for me, and it captures. But he's gonna tell us more. Thulani, Mr. Gumede, let me greet you on our show and welcome you. How are you, my brother?
Mfethu ngiyabonga kakhulu, kuhamba kahle kakhulu. And ngibingelele nama-viewers wakho mfethu, kuhle kakhulu kwi-show yakho mfethu, siyabonga.
Thank you so much. I can't greet you and not ask you how family is, because this book you speak about fathering. So the moment one speaks about fathers, then you speak about family. How is family doing after all these COVID and pandemic times?
No, the family is doing great, and you know, it's an honor to have a family, especially in Ghana, nonkosikazi, you know. And yeah, day by day, we are learning. In fact, we are trying to change our numbers in South Africa. La khulunywa kakhulu ngokuthi obaba base South Africa abekho involved with my families wabo. So for me, it's just an honor to be a father who is present with family yakhe. So yeah.
But now, someone sits there and say, okay, this is a great subject, but who is Thulani Gumede? And someone wants me to ask that question for them. And in brief, who would you say Thulani Gumede is?
Thulani mfethu kakhulu kumaciko, ngizothi nje because ngidume kakhulu ngokuba umbhali, you know. But abantu abangazi kakhulu mfethu ngumuntu okhonze kakhulu i-art, yabo le nto. Yeah, ngumuntu nje engayibeka kakhulu kwi-art because ngisamncane bengidweba, you know.
Alright.
Ukudweba kwami esikoleni kwaze kwangisiza ukuthi ngiwinele isikole computer. That was way back, ama-computer sayizinto ey'nkulu, yabo le nto. So
with our generation, yes.
Yeah, you know. Ngithe mase ngise high school ke ngadweba ngawinela isikole computer, and then ngase ngishaya no poetry. Sengizoqeda high school ngangena kwi hip hop, you know, bhala ama rhymes and all that. Nase tertiary ke into engifike kakhulu ngiyenza le. But uma usubuka overall holistically umuntu we-art mfethu, but okwamanje into engispecialize kakhulu kuyo ukubhala, you know, umthulani Yeyeye umbhali.
Okay. Raised where in terms of the name of the place, and how difficult was it? Because then you speak about you growing up without a father.
Yeah. Mina mfethu ngikhulele kwaDukuza eGroundville endaweni yaseCharlottesville, you know. So yeah, mfethu, I think it was quite something because mina ngashonela ubaba ngina 3, you know. Ngizoba na 4, 1988, you know. So, you know, then ngikhula mfethu ngizama ukufika rish ukuthi ubaba uyisema umuntu kanjani, yabo le nto le, because anginaye, yabo le nto le. And into yangichallenge kakhulu ngithi mangizama uku-analyze indaba yobaba from abangani bami, you know, engibona ukuthi hayi ongazuthi ukuthi akube i-challenge because mina ngikhula anginayo ubaba, anginayo ivoice ekhuluma empilweni yami, you know. And that was one thing, in fact, that stood out for me ukuthi in fact when I look back I realized ukuthi bengilekha kakhulu kwi-affirmation, yabo.
Okay, I get you.
Khona i-chapter la ngikhuluma khona ngokuthi uyindoda. Ngibhala i-poem ekhuluma ukuthi uyindoda, ukuthi mangibuka ubaba wami mfethu ukuthi mhlawumbe kube benginobaba yini mhlawumbe into ebengabe ngilangazelela kakhulu kuyena, yabo. Ngiyababona abanye banobaba, it's beautiful, banemali nakho konke, but mina Thulani Yeyeye yini into engithi mangicabanga ubaba ngicabanga ukuthi lena into ebizobaleka kakhulu, yona into ebengizoyijabulela kakhulu from my own father. And I realized ukuthi one thing that was missing in my life, affirmation ukuthi uyindoda, you know. And that was quite amazing for me ukuthi I just needed the affirmation mfethu yabo ubaba wami nje mangenze something kube khona umuntu ozothi uyindoda yabo le nto
yeah.
And ngithe mase ngiqala ngianalyze I spend time with abantu abadala I realized ukuthi this thing of affirmation is quite big, you know.
Okay.
There are people who are in their 70s, you know, or 60s ngokweminyaka, you know. But when you spend time with them, you realize ukuthi there is this gap that is missing. There's this big gap in their own hearts that they were never affirmed as sons, you know, and daughters, you know. And that was one thing that stood out for me. Ukuthi yazi ukuthini anginawo ubaba washona, but some of my friends under the same roof, they've got their own fathers, yet there's still this gap, you know.
Now it takes me directly to this question before I go back to one of the questions in the synopsis. Then, having done the study and the root cause and all the study that you've put in to write this book, what is a father and how important is a father to a person? I don't want to say to a young man's life or to a girl. You can split it however you want, but what is a father? In a separate context, someone would say someone had a sexual intercourse with women A and they were able to bear a son. Does that qualify that person who has to call them a father? Or is there a separate discussion one can enter into and then say, these are the things that qualifies a man to be a father? And how important is a father in a person's life?
That's quite big, because this book, I published it last year in March, you know. The statistics around that time, in fact, it was 2017, the statistics were saying, looking at South Africa as a nation, the statistics were pointing out at the fact that 60% of South Africans do not stay with their own fathers. When we look at Ingane, you know. Feb this year, 2021, you know, our numbers are nyukile, which is something that is breaking my heart. The latest states from SA Stats point out to manje 70%, you know, of ingane zase South Africa azinabo abazali. Now you'll agree with me to this ukuthi uma uzobuka abantu abawu10 ebesuthi kulabo abawu7 abanabo obaba ubabeke eceleni, then you focus kulabo abawu3 abanobaba. Then we come back to this other issue now, iyobaba abakhona kodwa bengekho present enganeni zabo, you know. So uma uzobuka kahle indaba okuba ubaba ukuthi ungaba ubaba ukuthi wonke umuntu uthi uyachoma wonke umuntu mina nginengane mina mfethu uyabona ngindoda nginengane, but uma usu-analyze ukuthi njengoba uyindoda mhlambe ngokuthi unengane but ubaba yini, then you realize ukuthi sekune gap. Are you present empilweni yengane yakho noma ubaba nje ngegama awukho present? Because a lot of people are suffering from that ukuthi manje abaningi bazosho ukuthi hayi ubaba ukhona, kodwa manje the fatherhood element, this element engicabanga ukuthi ibalekile emntwini oyintombazane noma owumfana ukuthi ingabe upresent in kwimpilo yakho. Because into elimaza abantu abaningi naSoweto engiyibonile ile ndaba ukuthi because of the background esikhule ngayo ngicabanga ukuthi sazofika lapho uthola ukuthi obaba abekho present under the same roof kodwa akakwazi ukuconnecta nawe Soweto, uyabo.
So there's that element of being physically present and emotionally absent.
That's correct. So back in the day before my phone, ubaba befuya emsebenzini afunda newspaper. So you know, there's that wall that is created, you know. So the most painful thing that I saw with abantu abanobaba, it's when ubaba eshona, you know. Ebese kufika abangani bakababa wakho emncwabeni bethe Gumede Thulani eyeye yazi ubaba wakho bengeve proud ngawe, you know. And then you are shocked ukuthi but ubaba never said anything to me, you know.
I get you.
But you know, and at times you will think they are making up stories because kushoniwe. But when you listen to them, you realize ukuthi hayibo, these people, they know more about me, you know, than ubaba would share with me, you know. Like they will know ukuthi wenza ziphi ifundo, ubaba wakho bengawuvala umlomo emashibhini masiphuza utshwala ehleze ekhuluma ngawo, you know. So you find the thing ukuthi ubaba mabe proud ngengane zabo, you know, abakwazi ukuthi ba-crack the wall and then they engage with their own kids ukuthi I'm proud of you, wenza kahle. But they will go bakhuluma mhlawumbe utshwaleni ukuthi hey mina yazi ingane yami yabo uyazi uSoweto wenzani yabo, but uma efika ekhaya, you know, just ukubeka exactly, just ukubeka nje sibonele esincane before ngilendele. Umngane wami wayesebenza egarage mfethu nomunye ubaba ngisase high school esebenza part time. uthi lo baba mfethu lenga kwaDukuza uthi lo baba lona uyaconnecta nomngani wami yabo
Sure.
ubaba mdala mfethu une age group yokuthi ulingana nobaba kamngani wami so mabe connect egarage emsebenzini usethi lo baba kumngani wami yazi Nhlahla ngizokwenza isibonelo yazi Nhlahla mfana wami ungangibona nje ngiconnecta nawe kanjena mangifika ekhaya ngidla izinyo yabo ngindoda ngiyahlina yabo lento le umfana wami akangeni yabo lento le so there is this gap that is there and iyona gap lena enza ukuthi abantu bethi benobaba kodwa uthola ukuthi ubaba uzofika ekhaya azi ukuthi mina ngingeneki ngidla izinyo yabo lento le exactly so it's destroying our own families now that's why it's cool
but then how does one break in or break that wall? Because of course, here we could also be wanting to enter into a discussion that speaks to traditions and cultures, you know, especially with black people. There has been problems around fathers and sons and you know how the treatment goes. You know, of course, there is a transition now to the new generation, which sees things very differently. You know, I mean, I look at my daughter, the way she asks me questions, you know, I mean, I'm thinking, I would have never asked questions like this. I mean, something as simple as sitting on the same couch with your father or your parents, that never happened. So how do we as the new fathers break that wall between ourselves and our kids?
That's a good question. The first thing that we need to sort of visit in order for us to deal with this, we need to go back and analyze our own history as South Africans, as Africans, because we were colonized and all these systems that were imposed on us, they had an agenda. When you look at South Africa, it's very painful ukuthi umubuka role of fatherlessness ukuthi ize kanjani, you know. There was a time mfethu umubuka South African history where ugovernment we-apartheid wayeforce obaba bethu ukuthi bahambe beyimayini. So khona imali okufanele bayikhokhe and ongakwazi ukuyikhokha lezo imali uma uhlele ekhaya. So they were forced mfethu ukuthi basuke baye emayini bayosebenza khona. Then ama-families wethu ebekhulwa erezwa omama yabo lento le. So umuntu uma erezwa omama kuba naleyo nto ukuthi as a son mfethu you don't have a role model yabo lento le. So we need to go back, you know. Khona incwadi engifundayo kaBlack Mordecai need to blame me on history. It's not an excuse that we are going back to analyze our own history, but we are where we are as South Africans. You know, as a man, if you find it easy to be away from your family because that is our own upbringing. It's said, the first man I connected with emsebenzini ubengahlali kude nasemndenini wakhe, but because of the upbringing, guess what? He told me ukuthi mangimbuza ukuthi indaba angagoduka emndenini wakhe wangitshela ukuthi no, Gumede, you know, Yeyeye mfana wami, muyindoda awuhlali nonkosikazi wakho. Indoda iya isizobona unkosikazi mhlawumbe once a month, you know. Ukuba indoda ke lokho, you know. Iphuma phi lonto? Iphuma kwi-background yethu. Ukuthi obaba basebenze emayini. Uma uhleli nonkosikazi wakho mfethu, you are not a man enough, you know. So indoda kufanele ihlale emayini isebenze kanzima, you know. Ibuye mfethu once a year or twice. Izofika ngama-Easter izobuya ngoDecember. Then bese kuba idili. Indoda ke le. So now thina now mina nawe Soweto, we are trying to fix those things. We don't understand why do we find it easy to be away from our own families. It's because the system is shy. And the very same people who are strategic about that, they are questioning us, why abantu abamnyama bengekho supportive of their own families? Yet they are the very same people who strategically use those systems to isolate us. We can take this as an excuse, but now me and you, we are trying to fix that. Like I'm saying now, I am involved in my family. But now another question, another issue that is now engulfing most of me and you is that some of us grew up without our own fathers. How do we find a balance now, Uguti? We love our kids not to their own detriment. We love them to a point Uguti, we can grow them as well.
I like that because I think the first thing that you mentioned is how our history can become an excuse.
Absolutely.
You know, so for me, I want to find out what has been the key motivating factor. I mean, one of the things that you say, the author in his wise writing has taken it upon himself to be the father he never had. Most people, and this is what I said at some point on social media, that the more you speak about the ugly things that are happening in your life, that's what you end up becoming. So stop focusing on the hatred and all of that, because it's easy to become that. Instead, focus on the things that you love in order to become that. What do you think has been the key thing that has made you to say, I am not going to become what I never had.
Yeah, I think that is coming from my own experiences.
Sure.
I know the pain of needing a father, and the father is not there, So because of the experiences that I went through, which were not pleasant, ngiyazi pain, it's tangible in me,
Sure.
So firstly, I wrote this book, Fathering Shadows, to ensure ukuthi a child that is without a father can read this book and feel a presence kababa.
Sure.
Because you'll remember that each challenge yami enkulu was this thing of affirmation ukuthi I needed a voice ezothi ngiyindoda. And growing up without a father, I knew ukuthi leyo voice leyo bengingayithola ngisho kumalume kunoma uba.
Sure.
It's also a challenge kubaba bakhona ukuthi azokuthini, let's reach a point where we identify ingane engenabo baba and be able to speak words of wisdom. Uma ubuka le ncwadi abaningi bayi-highlighta njengencwadi full of wisdom, because mangikuma crossroad, there was a time I had a problem with isikole, and I had this longing, which I wish I had ubaba, just to ask him, what do you think of isikole? Why do we have to go to school? What do you think of a workplace? There is the office politics. Athi nama experiences akho, Mina mfethu ngikhule nginomama usakhona, loving mother, but it wasn't enough. I needed a father who would speak to me, So this book uma uyifunda ungenayo ubaba, it assures you ukuthi yazokuthini you are enough, It assures you ukuthi there's something about you, because I know I don't have to know you to know that there's something about you. Edinga cultivate, it's there. And this book in fact, it does it so well, Fathers who don't have kids, I mean fathers who are not involved, they read this book and realize ukuthi there's this gap, we are transforming our own generation. The way I'm loving my sons right now, and the fact, when I look at them, it's beautiful. But when I say, wow, I'm proud of my son, I see them, but something happens. Oh, Baba, affirm your sons, affirm your daughters, and they need that, And it challenges us in our and we think we can provide and then walk away. That's enough, In fact, this was the biggest challenge when I was all over the place promoting this book. I realized that a lot of fathers, they think, Gumede, I don't understand what you are trying to say. Mina ngihambe esikoleni ngenyawo mfethu ngiesikoleni. Ingane yami ngiyayithatha ngiyidrop. Imifuna iPlayStation iyayithola. So why kufanele ngize ngiba-affirm, And
now, I want to ask you, a very, very hypocritical question. Between a father who's present financially, absent emotionally, and a father who's present emotionally and absent financially, who's the better father?
No, okay, that's a tricky one, but I'm gonna dismantle it by saying ukuthi ubaba kuzoba beautiful makuthi ubaba okhona emotionally ingoba engekwazi support financially, is because akakwazi yabo lento le. So in that case, abantu abaningi mfethu, we remember our people who spoke powerful words over our lives than the people who gave us money and invested in it without impacting our lives.
I get you.
That is why now we must analyze impilo. We get confused ukuthi indaba ingane billionaire commit suicide, because there's that gap that imali cannot fill, But words mfethu, mina right now mangiwe crossroad, what I remember or what I try to think of ukuthi imapha amazwi mfethu ubaba noma ubaba othile owakhuluma kumina. The way I maneuver through crossroad is when I remember those words ukuthi azokuthini, this is how you maneuver through life. Ukuhlomisa ingane zethu mfethu, it's beautiful when we help them financially, but ukubahlomisa kwethu mfethu kuzofana kube ne-information so that uma usulele ethuneni izothi ingane yami hayi lento ubaba wayisho. Angitholanga at that time. But these words, mfethu, there are some of the things now when you read this book, you realize ukuthi uthi umculi mfethu ngiyambonga umama wami ngongishayisa wentandane. It was painful at that time. But later on I realized ukuthi ayibo lo muntu bengakha mfethu yabo lento le. So we need to make sure ukuthi we plant seed enganeni zethu, so that even if kwenzakalani kuthini. With this book, mfethu, I'm sorry to say what I'm about to say. With this book, because I grew up without a father, there was this fear ukuthi, oh God, if I were to die without ingane zami, this book mfethu izokerisha ingane zami even 50 years from now. They will read this book and
I get the perspective.
And hear how I viewed life. That's what I needed to hear from my father, but he was never there for me,
I see. Look, if you just came, we're discussing this book, and I'm about to ask the question, why fathering shadows, but you can literally see and feel the emotions, the energy that the writer had when he wrote about this, because it's such a personal subject and it's something that we need to talk about. We also know, I mean, that the first institution that God established was the family. So if you want to destroy the human beings, you need to destroy the family. Now, David says, even though I walk through the valley of shadows, or the death of shadows, I mean, he speaks about that, and you are speaking about fathering shadows. You know, I want to understand why fathering shadows as a title of this book.
That's a beautiful one. It had to be poetic, fathering shadows, you know, because a father, I believe a father needs to be tangible. You cannot touch a shadow, you know, and most of us are fathered by shadows, you know. Fathers who are there, but they are never there because you can never reach out to them. You can never touch them. They are shadows. So by me writing this book, I'm just trying to pull out all these fathers from shadows into light so that they become people that you can touch and engage with, you know. So after all is said and done, my success with this book, it's when it's when fathers sneak out from the darkness and they become people that you can engage and have a conversation with, you know.
Yeah, actually, I love that verse. You know, it says, "Even though I walk through the shadow of the valley of death." Now, one of the things that you speak about, just while we're on the cover, of course, it says "Fathering Shadows." Then the subtitle is "Letters to My Seed." What's the connection or the correlation between fathering and then you speak about letter to my seed? I want to speak more on fathering and then you speak about the seed.
That's correct. Now, with the seed, now we you know, as a father, you know, even when you read the Bible, you find this thing when the father will sit down his own seed or generation, and then they will speak life to them, you know. So this is what I'm doing with this book now. That the way this book was structured, the first chapter of this book, or earliest chapters, they are looking back at something that happened in Rwanda. There was a genocide where the two tribes were at war, and then kwasekudlwengula abantu besifazane, you know. 20 years later, kwenziwe research ukuthi lezi ngane zazalwa through rape ziphila kanjani, you know, eRwanda. I-research mfethu ithola ukuthi omama abathola ingane through rape, they are still hating their own kids. Ukuthi yazi ukuthini ngakuthola nge-rape, you are a child of a snake. Those are the terms they use, you know. So when I write letters to my seed, this is me now writing letters. Ngisho ngathi uzalwe through rape, you know. Masibuka uNkulunkulu mfethu. That is one thing that confuses a whole lot of people now, of which is a topic I'm not going to go into. Apologists and apologetics and all that. Ukuthi uNkulunkulu memuhle, why ezokuvumela ukuthi uzalwe through rape? Rape zonke lezi zinto lezi. So this is me affirming those kids ukuthi yazi ukuthini ngenzeka ukuthi leyo nto iyinto embi, but uNkulunkulu uneplan, you know. There are people manje who are great, you know, but uma ubuka indlela abazalwe ngayo, abanye basa upset ukuthi mina ngizalwe out of umshado yonke lento le. Lama letters mfethu akhuluma ngazo zonke ke lezo zinto, affirming sons and daughters ukuthi yazi ukuthini I'm writing letters covering different aspects of life now. Ukuthi mina I failed to have an encounter with isikole as much as ngagcina sengi-understanda ngaphumelela, but this is how I view the isikole, you know. This is how I view the workplace. This is how I view the society, you know. These are different letters now. Azokwenza ukuthi uma ufika kuma crossroads, you know, you'll be able to maneuver, you know, because there's somebody who's been there and now is telling you, you know. We need fathers who will tell us ukuthi ngisasebenze eGoli kwakwenzeka ukuthi nokuthi. Those stories will help us as we run our own families and as we maneuver. This is why now, as a father, I'm trying to father the nation, because 70% of our own fathers are not present. And the 30% of present is not guaranteed. The 30% is fully involved in their own families. So because of this, I had to write my letters.
Powerful stuff.
You can pick any letter and read it.
So basically, you know, with the letters, we're saying it's not how you were born. It's what you are born for. It's more of a destiny issue. But now someone will say, it's fine, I like that, but how do I deal with the fact that I'm trying to achieve my destiny, my success, but at the same time, I'm still trying to deal with the bitterness, the anger, and the absence of my father, of my parents. How does one deal with the two? Or how have you as an author actually deal with the two? Because it seems like at some point you were living in two dimensions, the dimension of the destiny and the dimension of lacking. So this side you're lacking the father, but this side you're believing in your destiny. How does one work around these two dimensions?
I think the one major thing mfethu engicabanga ukuthi ibalekile kuwo wonke umuntu mfethu khona incwadi yami ephume nje manje impumelelo kaMadakeni talking about upbringing yami in terms of success. Into ebaluleke kakhulu mfethu kuwo wonke umuntu ukwazi ukuthi noma ikephi la usuku khona uzokwazi ukuphumelela uma udinga impumelelo. But now it's easy for me to say that we must analyze part fatherlessness as South Africans and as Black South Africans. Angisi umuntu nokuba emotional easily, you know, nginakho nje ukuthi ngibe umuntu ongathi uqinile, but ngingasekhaya mfethu enye insizwa mfethu yaza kumina yazongihaga mfethu yakhala. Insizwa endala mfethu engikhule nayo around. Ungitshena ukuthi lo mfethu ukhule ngenayo ubaba wakhe, and because of that mfethu, you know, ayikho into emhambela kahle empilweni yakhe yabo lento le. Because kholela ukuthi ubaba wami mangamazanga angeke ngiphumelele empilweni yabo lento le. So we're still dealing with those issues. Ebese kuba khona ke le issue mfethu yokuthi abanye abantu mfethu besifazane, sorry to say this, they are using kids to fight izimpi yabo lento le, azofaka iwall between ubaba nengane, not realizing ukuthi ubaba angayisilwane, uhusband noma ex-husband yakhe ngayisilwane kuwe, but ingane isamdinga, you know. So to have that bridge now ukuthi yazi ukuthini, ubaba wakho isidakwa akayinto alutho, but ukwazi ukuyithatha ingane uyilethe uthi ubaba wakho angikholelwa ukuthi ubaba wakho good for you, but here's your father. Ibonele ingane mfethu ibe nale encounter ukuthi ngisho si walk away, yazi ukuthi no, ubaba wami mfethu at least nginaye encounter naye, you know. Ngiyamazi ukuthi umuntu onjani, ngisho ngathiwa uphuza lale lapha mfethu, but at least I know that is who my father is, you know.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't want to talk politics. I mean, yesterday we heard that someone was suspended and someone suspended somebody. We don't want to talk politics, but I want to know from you, how big do you think is the damage that the absence of fathers has caused, and do you think we can correct it? If so, how?
Yeah. It's okay. The damage is very big. I just need to say that. I think in the figure challenge to Soweto, ukuthi kwesinye isikhathi kuyaye kubukwe abantu abanjengathi who have managed to make it in life, and then bese ufuna ukuthatha leyo sample analyze the whole population. Uthi nangu uGumede ukhule ngenawo baba right, so wena why, you know?
I get what you mean.
So that thing is destroying a lot of people, ukuthi yabo, you know. But it starts with you. You know, it starts with you. Mina mfethu ngikushintshile lokho, you know, and ifamily yami right manje, but it's not enough, you know. Mangekhaya mfethu ngivakashile ekhaya ngiyangibona izingane zobhuti, ubhuti wami washona, yabona ukuthi abafuni ungibiza ngobaba omncane, bafuna ungibiza ngobaba, because there's that gap yabo lento le. Ngiyangikhuluma esontweni ukuthi baba as-identify ingane, you know, ezincane, you know. Ukwazi ukuspeaka words of life. Ukubona umfana omncane edlala uthi yazi wena konke engibona kuwena, you know, uyindoda yabo, I'm proud of you, you know. I like what you did there, uyindoda yabo. So all those things they will change the society. It will start with me doing that in my own family, and then looking for opportunities out there for ingane.
Look, in rounding up, of course, I know we've got time constraints. What's your favorite chapter in this book and why?
Sure, that's a tough. Okay, it's easy. Ilethi ngindoda. Ngibhala poem ethi ngindoda. You know, that's all. I just needed a male voice because ubaba was not there. I needed a male voice. I'm repeating that so that ubaba okhona ezokwazi uku-identify ukuthi uma uzoza emntwini onjengami umtshela ukuthi Gumede mfana wami uyindoda. That thing changes me completely. I'm 37 now, but I still need that. I'm not gonna be ashamed to say that. Khona abantu abano 60 no 70 years old interact nabo, they still need that affirmation. We all need it. Emsebenzini kephi we need that affirmation.
Yeah. So the title of the book is Fathering Shadows, and I want to give him 30 seconds to tell you why you should buy this book.
South Africa mfethu kuthiwa 60-70% of obaba abekho involved with my families. If Fathering Shadows, uma uyifunda ungenawo ubaba iyakwazi ukuthi kunikeze affirmation. Uma uyifunda ubaba ungekho involved iyakwazi ukwenza ukuthi ubone ukuthi I need to step my game up.
That's powerful, and I hope everyone there is touched. I hope every man is moved. I hope you wake up tomorrow, you decide I want to be a present father. But beyond that, to those of us who grew without a father, I hope we make the decision that we're not going to become our past. You know,
Sure.
history has a way of repeating itself. Let's go out there and make sure that we do not become our past. Some of the books that Thulani has written is Grief and Hope, Inqaba, Lovers and Mirrors. I think there was a second volume of Grief and Hope, Love Rage. These are some of the books that you can go out and get, but make sure you go out to all social media platforms and get this book. But otherwise, you can always make sure that you contact us on Articulate Africa 2021 or AA21. Thank you for coming through with us. See you next week. Otherwise, go and get this beautiful book. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tonight.